Hello and welcome back to the reading of Santa Ana, the people, the pueblo, and the history of Tamaya. We will continue on with chapter 3. After destroying Paure, Espejo's men marched back to Kira's lands, where they were well received. They soon learned that news of what had happened to Paula had spread throughout the provinces. Having heard how Castra had treated Paure, the other pueblos were very much afraid and all served and regaled the soldiers. Espejo and his contingent, however, did not remain in Pueblo lands long after the destruction of Paure. At the end of June, they left San Felipe, traveling east to the Pecos River, where they headed south out of the region. Back in New Spain, Espejo spoke enthusiastically about the land he had explored. Its people, he said, were healthy, intelligent, and orderly. They lived in attractive pueblos with plazas and well-arranged houses, and their lands had an abundance of game animals, rabbits, hares, deer, buffaloes, ducks, geese, cranes, and pheasants, and other birds. Near the pueblos were fine wooded mountains with trees of all kinds, salines, and rivers containing a great variety of fish. Farmers and ranchers would find good pastures for cattle, as well as lands suitable for vegetables or grain crops. Best of all, Espejo claimed the region had many rich mines. The news spread quickly. In the unknown lands to the north, riches were to be had. Spanish law, however, provided that no Spaniard could explore those lands or settle in them without a contract approved by the King of Spain. To win such a contract, a man had to recruit potential colonists and soldiers, and to provide with his own funds almost everything that the group would need for the journey. It was an enormous and uncertain undertaking, but one that many were willing to make in the hope of finding great wealth. A few were willing to take even greater risks by going north immediately without waiting for an official contract. The first of these was Gaspar Castaño de Sosa, who took 170 colonists north in 1590 to build a settlement in New Mexico. Following the Pecos River, by December they had reached the pueblo of Pecos. In January 1591, they moved west to the Rio Grande. Late in the month, they arrived in a valley somewhere in Kira's lands, where 4 pueblos stood within sight of each other. There, Castaño de Sosa raised a cross and asked the people to pledge their obedience to His Majesty. In this Kira's town, as in many of the pueblos he visited, he appointed a governor, an alcalde, and an alguacil. After conducting this ceremony, the Spaniards left the Kira's region for a time, but by early March they had returned from the Galisto Basin and set up a camp at Santo Domingo, where the people gave them a very friendly reception. Most of the colonists stayed in this camp, but a small group accompanied Castaño de Sosa on a search for mines, which took them to the region near Paure. Wherever the explorers went in this region, the people of the pueblos fled as soon as they saw Castra approach. Near Paure, many tried to cross the Rio Grande, even though the river was swollen by runoff. Others left their homes and sought refuge in the mountains or in other pueblos. Castaño de Sosa's party did not stay long in the region. Hearing that a group of Spaniards had reached the camp at Santo Domingo, they turned back. When they reached the camp, they found not the additional colonists their leader had hoped for, but 40 well-equipped soldiers led by Captain Juan Merlete, who had come to arrest Castillo de Sosa and escort the settlers back to New Spain. Before the Spaniards left, Marlete tried to reassure the pueblos in the region, but he found it difficult to convey his message because these pueblos spoke many different languages, and he had no interpreters who would enable him to talk to the people. Although Castillo de Sosa was taken back to New Spain, tried, found guilty, and punished, the lure of the land to the north remained strong. While many men waited in the hope of receiving an official contract, a second group went north without permission in 1593. Little is known of their journey, for unlike those who had gone before them, the men led by Francisco Lleva de Bonilla and Antonio Guterres de Umaña never returned to New Spain. Years later, it would be learned that they had traveled through Pueblo lands, camped near San Ildefonso, and then gone east to the plains, where they died. At last, after years of delay, the King of Spain awarded a contract for the settlement of New Mexico. Juan de Onate received that contract in September 1595, but more than 2 years passed before his expedition received final approval to leave for the north. By January 1598, Oñate had assembled his colonists and supplies for final inspection. 129 men, accompanied by wives, children, and servants, were prepared for the journey. 8 friars and 2 lay missionaries would join the colonists, as the contract required. Oñate had obtained wheat, corn, and large herds of cattle, sheep, goats, mules, and horses for the expedition, in addition to iron tools, lead, powder, seed, and medicines for the colony. Oñate had brought a variety of goods for trade with the Indians: colored glass beads, necklaces, earrings, rings, thimbles, needles, scissors, thread, yarn, button, knives, combs, medals, hats, clay whistles, bells, and children's flutes and trumpets. Among these trade goods were rosaries, paintings, tin images, and other items that would help the friars explain their religion to the people of New Mexico. After reviewing the colonists' livestock and supplies, the inspector gave his approval. All was in order, and Oñate's group could go north. Like those who had preceded them, Oñate's recruits hoped to find rich mines and fertile lands, to explore unknown territories, and to bring the word of their God to the native people. Although they shared the hopes of those who had gone before them, this group differed from earlier Spanish expeditions to New Mexico in 2 major ways. They went not to visit the land to the north, but to settle them, and they had a mandate from their government to do so in the name of the Spanish king. To demonstrate that mandate in the manner of their countrymen, they held ceremonies wherever they went, declaring in the name of their God and their king that these lands belonged to Spain. On April 30th, 1598, Oñate claimed all of New Mexico, of its kingdoms and provinces, and those adjacent and neighboring, in the name of the King our Lord. His claim included all that was within in those lands, without exception and without limitation. Spain's holdings would encompass everything, from the leaves of the trees in the forest to the stones and the sands of the river. According to the laws of Christian Europe, Oñate's act guaranteed Spain the rights to the land and resources of New Mexico. We will stop here and continue on the next time. Thank you for joining me.